All right, it is day 4 of the long holiday, or better put, the final day of the long holiday. It's a Tuesday morning, 1st of April, 2025, 32 minutes past 7 a.m. You're tuned into the Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. This is your love music, love live station. Yours truly is Ayokunmi Kekere. I'm ready to walk you through the world of the papers, the headlines, and the major stories that have you and I talking. This is Freshly Pressed, an interactive session, as always. That means that this is how it works. We get the stories, analysis will follow, and your contributions also very, very key, very important. We always love to hear from you. And you can do that by sending those messages into us on WhatsApp on 0809 444 0981. 0809 444 That is the WhatsApp number. You can also join the live stream on YouTube. We're streaming live at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Those are the ways you can join us this morning. Speaking of us, I'm not doing this alone. Joining me to analyze the stories and break it all down, Chibuzor is in, even though virtually on a holiday Tuesday morning. Good morning to you, Chibuzor. Great to have you on the show.
Good morning, good morning, Lagos. It's holiday morning, and I hope we are getting in some rest because tomorrow is our week starter.
Back to life and back to reality tomorrow for a lot of people. For some of us, we haven't had a holiday, so it's just continuation for us more or less. But I'll try to get my own rest when the show is done and dusted. But for now, let us get into the issues, the stories that are making the rounds, and we're going to begin in the Daily Trust. This is more or less an update on the gruesome story coming out of that came out of Edo State. Now, Kano State Governor Abba Yusuf has called on the Edo State government to parade those responsible for the brutal killing of 16 travelers in Uromi in Edo State. Now, he made the call while receiving Edo State Governor Monday Okpebholo, who led a delegation to Kano to offer condolences over the tragic incident. Welcoming the governor, Governor Yusuf expressed deep sorrow over the killings, emphasizing that most of the victims were from Kano State. Now, he also acknowledged the swift response of the Edo State government, commending Governor Okpebholo for his immediate visit to the crime scene and his efforts to ensure the victims were buried in accordance with the law. Praised the swift arrests made by security agencies and urged that justice be served. Now, justice is something all Nigerians definitely want to be served because there's been widespread condemnation of that action. 16 lives all at once taken just like that. And yes, we can understand the Kano State governor saying that, oh, he wants justice to be served. Those who committed the crime should be paraded and so on. I think that, some arrests have been made. About 14 arrests have been made. But Chibuzo, how important is it that this is not something done just to, oh, let's just put something out there, put some people out there just to assuage the feelings. This has to be done properly, and those who actually are responsible are the ones who need to be put on trial here or brought to justice.
Okay, as you said, this incident comes on the backdrop of years of what I would say tension and distrust between the people and security forces and the entire security apparatus. Unfortunately, within our local communities, there's been the ongoing narrative and experiences of various people about kidnapping,
Mm,
banditry, and all that, which have been fingers have been pointed at particular ethnic groups of people from particular parts of the country as being responsible for a lot of those harm. So the response to this has been groups of vigilantes, or groups of or more of military groups formed across parts of the country because of due to the seemingly inability of the state security apparatus to guarantee safety for the people.
mm,
Unfortunately, this also comes in the backdrop of a nation that has been used to this, and also the because of the distrust, when even when people are apprehended or suspects are apprehended, what tends to typically happen is that people meet out, or what we refer to as jungle justice or
jungle
justice outside
justice.
the judicial system, because of the lack of trust also of both the police or security forces and the judicial system to be able to take care of these kind of issues as they ought to. And I'm not holding brief for what has happened in Edo State or Uromi particularly, because this is what I'm just saying is that this is so many years of decay in various systems. And it's unfortunate. I'm not sure I'll be able to say that this is the last time that this would happen, or but we just hope that it doesn't happen. It doesn't repeat itself either at all, or even on this scale. So what has happened? We have a group of people who are reportedly have been traveling from Port Harcourt through Edo State, going to various destinations in the north, and they were stopped at some point and accused of being kidnappers. And instead of trusting in the system or in the judicial system to work its way, people decided to take the law into their hands, reportedly. Now, obviously, this has caused a lot of tension within those areas, within Edo State, not just Edo State, because obviously the deaths have filtered back to people who are reportedly heading home for celebrations and the Salah celebrations, at least to meet up with their families.
Right.
And as this, obviously, anybody who's familiar with Nigeria knows that these things don't stay within these two geographical regions. That just doesn't stay within Uromi and the communities of these people. It has a larger impact because it now spreads how people tend to see each other and how people tend to relate to each other. We have seen that the governor of Edo State has been going around trying to soothe the people of Kano State and the victims, the families of the victims, and trying to resolve these issues as best as he can. And we do hope that we come to a judicial conclusion and people actually are held accountable for the crimes they committed. But I do hope that the deeper line issue, which is the issue of security and the issue of trust in the former security apparatus, is resolved. And we actually, because what we had before this is that there were reports of continuous kidnaps in those areas, and people have had, and this is the reaction to things like that. So we do hope that those issues are sorted out and people can place some trust and feel safe when they are going out. As with specific comments to the request of the governor to parade them, one of the things, and we used to have this program back in the day where you had suspects basically paraded, and I think there was a particular Nigerian musician, I think African China, he had a line in his songs where he talked about these people being paraded, and we had we had the wealthier thieves, the politicians, the big businessmen who were stealing in multitude and who did not get such treatment. Now, as long as the governor can get his wish after these people have gone through the system, the judicial system, and have been found guilty, and as long as those wishes do not conflict with any of their human rights or any of their rights, then they can be paraded as much as they can. But if it's asking for them to be paraded before they are found guilty because they are suspects, then we are going back to you are going back to the same source of the same problem that's led to the killings in the same place, where people want to mix out justice the way they feel based on their emotions instead of going through a judicial system, which is what actually prevents us from, in most cases, from taking about people for either killing or punishing people who are not guilty. But let them go through the system. They say they have 15 suspects. It might be more than that. It might be less than that. Let them go through that process. Let them be found guilty and let them face the full weight of the law. That is what I would ask at the end of the day.
And that is what a lot of people are looking to see.
Yes. And that's what to be happening. We do wish that the families of those that have lost their people also have given the strength to be able to go through this period and be able to move on or without them. But this is sad. This is sad. Even in this time, this is quite sad.
This is sad, and this is a reflection of where we are as a nation. So it's two things. One, that those who are guilty of this heinous crime are actually brought to justice, and of course, one of the bigger issues here is that the security situation in the country, which has actually led to these sort of issues coming up, are actually sorted out. If we didn't have those underlying issues, we wouldn't be having situations where we have vigilante groups and so on and so forth having to take laws and so on into their hands. That is not how a country that is
Yeah.
working properly is
Yes.
supposed to go.
Yes, that's it because this is just one of potential things that could happen tomorrow, next year, next week. And we don't want it to happen. We don't want it to happen on the other side. So we need to, prevent these things by sorting out our security framework.
Yeah.
And let the people know that it's been sorted. Let people have trust in it and let people feel secure.
Indeed. All right, let's keep things moving. You also keep your thoughts coming in on WhatsApp on 0809-444-0981. That is the WhatsApp number to share your thoughts on the issues that we are discussing this morning on Freshly Pressed right here on Smooth 98.1. Let's jump into the Vanguard. Let's talk about Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, where the military governments of those countries have announced a new 0.5% levy on imported goods from Nigeria and other economic community of West African states, ECOWAS member nations. And they also sought to fund a new three-state union after leaving the larger regional economic bloc, according to an official statement signed by the trio. Now, according to said statement, the levy was agreed last Friday and had taken immediate effect. Now, levy, it said, would affect all goods imported from outside the three countries, but would not include humanitarian aid. Well, since Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger decided to leave ECOWAS, they've been more or less doing their own thing, forming the group of Sahel states, as it were. Now, they're imposing they have imposed a 0.5% levy on goods from Nigeria and other ECOWAS countries. What exactly does this mean going forward, Chibuzor, for them and, of course, for Nigeria and other ECOWAS members? Are you with us, Chibuzor? Because we can't hear you. Okay, looks like some technical issues are happening on the other side. And I'll try to get Chibuzor back on ASAP so we can continue. We're looking at the stories, talking about this particular one coming out of the Vanguard. Just do not go anywhere and do not move a muscle. Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. We'll continue in a moment. Chibuzor, can you hear me?
Bless them with the face, bless them with the pretty mind too. I may look like her, but we're not the same, mind you. All the things I'm saying are spinning your mind too. Call it mental gymnastics or better, call it mind too. You can find your mind when you let the music find you right here on Smooth 98.1. This is Miss Eva Johnson, and don't you touch that. Smooth, smooth.
Let's for one chop person. You're muted.
I don't know what happened. I just saw that I was disconnected from the meeting. I still had network. It just went off.
Now, I just had to apologize briefly. We'll get back in now.
Okay, just give me a sec. I think if I should wait on my mobile or should just move to my system again. Okay, if you can hear me clearly from this, right?
I can hear you on this, yeah.
Yes, let's continue on my mobile then.
All right, all right. All right, went back in.
Okay.
Apologies for the technical issues. Sometimes it happens, and we just try to do the best we can to resolve them. But I think we are back on track. Chibuzor is back with us, ready, willing, and able to keep it going. So we're talking about the story coming out of the Vanguard Tribune. We're talking about Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, and the 0.5% levy on goods that they placed on Nigeria and other ECOWAS countries. So the question I asked, just in case you did not hear it, I did say that what exactly does this mean for Mali, for Burkina Faso, and for Niger? And importantly, what does it mean for Nigeria and the other countries in the ECOWAS bloc?
So what does it mean basically? I always used to crack this joke about one of the there's historically, whenever we look at Nigeria's trade numbers, one of the things that we tend to notice that a lot of our trade happens outside of the region or sub-region. Nigeria does a lot more trade with countries outside Africa, the US, China, far-flung places, and we do far less trade within our within ECOWAS or even within the Africa region.
Mm.
And for those who are very Pan-African, it's one of the growths that they tend to have, that we need to do a lot more trade within the African region to be able to stimulate growth and development within Africa. And it's not just a Nigerian problem. I think a lot of the other big countries in Africa have the same similar issues about having little trade, not having enough trade within Africa. And obviously, a lot of it can be pointed out to the fact that a lot of the African countries, unfortunately, are quite poor. Niger and Chad, who are our neighbors, Nigeria has some of the poorest countries in the world as some of its neighbors. By extension, both Burkina Faso and Mali are not some of the wealthiest countries, or despite of the news that we get coming out since the regimes have taken over. We do know recently, I think we heard some news last week that the Nigerian government had reached out to Nigerian government for some support with oil and later stuff. So I'm not surprised that we have some comments about humanitarian, about the tariffs not impacting humanitarian efforts. But what they've done is impose tariffs. They've imposed the 0.5 tariff. Now, you would say that in most cases, if you look into Nigeria and ask how, if you look into most of the countries around the region and ask how much of their goods are going into those countries, we'll be able to make a case and say, economically, what positions do we take going forward? Because if they impose a 0.5% levy on goods coming from other countries within the African region, supposedly to stimulate or to fund their bloc, you have to ask what is the volume of trade coming from countries like Nigeria, like Ghana, from their neighbors and from other countries within ECOWAS going to their countries. How much can it stimulate their own development?
Right.
And in the other way, how much, what is going to be the impact on the guys who are doing business and sending those products down? How much of those products are going through formal routes? Because that's another challenge within the trades, a lot of the trade that we have within this region, that they do not go through the formal routes. They go through the formal routes where they basically avoid having to pay these tariffs or taxes. But we need to look at it and say what is the impact economically in real terms? How much about what volume is going in? What kind of trade are they doing backwards also? Because this will now for me should determine the positions that the countries other countries take within this place. Don't forget that there are two sides to this coin. These countries urgently need some money coming in. That's why they're looking at putting this tariff.
Definitely.
On the other flip side, if we try to do some level of reciprocity and try and also throw tariffs back on their own goods, how much goods are they sending outwards into our countries, for instance? I speak maybe parts of the north, parts of Nigeria where we are dependent on goods coming in from Mali, from Burkina Faso, maybe from Niger. I do not know. I can't speak to those volumes, but that would be able to fund how we think about this process. Because for any government and any people that want to take a position on it, because the flip side on it, like I was trying to say, is that you either stifle their attempt to be able to make more money, and you now have to pay that price by sending them by intervening with humanitarian goods services down the line, or you have a discussion with them. I think there needs to be some discussion about that, because let's remove all the talks about tariffs and everything. We've had various interventions within Africa, within this West African region, to be able to bring together this entire place into one market. There's a lot of talk about how we used to be borderless before the Europeans came in and started cutting us up, and started imposing all these physical borders or all these borders that didn't really exist. But in reality, historically, we knew that there were some borders. There's always been trade. There's always been
Right.
some form of tariff. It's how do we make this work for us? So I do that. I do not believe the government will take a knee-jerk reaction to this and impose tariffs on the other side. But I think we just need to study this and understand what it is. How many of our people, how much of our traders is this impacting? Which of our industries are they impacting? And how do we sort out this impact? Either through dialogue or also through, can we also do the same to them? Because
Indeed.
there's no point in saying that you want to impose tariffs if they are not selling anything to you in the first place. So let's look
Right.
at this but the goal and ideal goal is that at the end of the day, we should be able to trade with our neighbors. And for them to trade, they need to have the means to trade. So that's what we need to look at as all the governments. And let's remove all these barriers, ASS, SSS, ECOWAS. Let's stop together and have one big entity that we can actually, have trust in and dialogue with.
Mm. Indeed. Thank you for sharing those thoughts, Chibuzor. Let me take a couple of messages before they pile up. This is Ajayi Oloniloa from Magodu GRA Sherry. And he says the Kano State governor should tread softly on the issue of the hunters' killings in Edo State, as no one has so far been paraded or prosecuted for the gruesome killing of Deborah in Sokoto, the innocent farmers in Ondo, Benue, and virtually all over the states. Failure of our security architecture is largely responsible for this ugly trend, something we've highlighted severally and even this morning as well. This is coming from Michael. Michael says, the government has failed in its approach to kidnappings and bandits. What if the travelers had the arms for protection against kidnappers and bandits? People will start protecting themselves, and from the look of things, chaos will reign. That's exactly what we don't want to happen, which is why we are trying to, should I say, push for a resolution to this matter. Justice needs to be served, and the underlying issues, they need to be dealt with. We've been shouting for years and years and years, and here we are, unfortunately. Jerry says, okay, he's greeting Chibuzor, and he says, are you really saying that these guys should be made to face the law from your heart? Flip it over. Would we have this kind of attention we're having today? Do we mean to say that these northerners have a different, I think you mean constitution, not construction, constitution governing them? I'm so sad and full of feelings for Edo citizens and all others whose families and loved ones have been brutally killed by these Fulani guys in their homelands. They don't have the monopoly for violence. And I'm sorry, Jerry, that is something that we cannot tolerate at all, at all, at all. The issue of violence. I mean, it's so easy to say that nobody has a monopoly of violence, but that is something that we don't want. We don't want. That's a road we don't want to go down on, because if we think that way, if we decide to go down that road, chaos is going to reign supreme. Doesn't serve anybody at the end of the day. So yes, we're emotional. Yes, we're feeling angry. We're feeling disappointed and so on and so forth. But we need to keep our heads at the end of the day. That is very, very key. If we're going to not descend into a state of total chaos and anarchy at the end of the day. But I get your thoughts, and thank you for sharing your message. This is Tony from Marine Beach, who says the Edo State massacre is highly regrettable, but I expect the government of the day to seriously address the causes or real reasons behind such incidents. The northern leaders should also begin to talk to their own people and find a way to end the massacre traced to their own people. Otherwise, built-up frustration can only lead to more of these. What do you do when government does nothing when your people are being killed like chickens? These are the questions. Cisco Delgado says, it will be very good if other state governors and federal government will be so keen to bring the suspects involved in heinous crimes of killings all over the country the same way. That's what we ask for. We need this sort of reaction across board, not picking and choosing where we want to. It doesn't work that way at all. Right, so let's quickly sneak this story in. It's coming from the Vanguard. I say sneak because time is actually sneaking on by really quickly. And it says, following the threats by the Attorney General of the Federation, the AGF, and Minister of Justice, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, that President Tinubu will declare a state of emergency in any state should the need arise. Opposition parties' leaders across states controlled by them and residents have vowed to resist any such action. Now, they noted that the remark by the AGF should be taken as a threat to democracy, adding that it portrays Nigeria as a country under dictatorship. Now, the AGF had warned that the federal government would not hesitate to mete out sanctions, including the declaration of a state of emergency in any state that threatens the economic interest of the country. I mean, I was surprised, to hear the AGF making certain comments. When he talked about the suspended Governor Fubara and so on and so forth. I mean, the AGF is in a position where he knows that he needs to be measured in his words, in the language that he uses. And looking at this is something that should be taken with all the seriousness that can be mustered. What are your thoughts, Chibuzor?
I think a lot of our individuals, and I have my personal thoughts about leadership, about the way we run leadership, and how leadership can easily become personality cults. But that's another discussion for another day. I think a lot of, like you said, I think a lot of our people in government and people who are around government, because what we've seen in this particular government is not just people who, the last government, we had a lot of conflicts around people who are in government and people take shadow governments within the government. But what we have here is that we have people within governments. While we've seen a lot of the president taking charge, doing a lot of the things, we hear a lot of what's coming from the president. We are having a lot of things from people who are around government who have also ascribed some level of power and influence to themselves, or who are appointees, who are making a lot of comments that typically you would not want to hear. And you said that for someone who's a lawyer and who has gone to this point, I think his statement should have been seen from 2 points. One, the understanding that constant units or constant parts of particular states are only regarded because of their economic contributions to the country. So, we don't really care about you as a people or you as a state or the people of your state. What we really are interested in is what you bring or what you contribute. So if you have oil and we have set our targets that we are going to do this by this point, either drop inflation to 15% by March or do whatever our targets are, our lofty targets are. If you are going to stop it, we'll sort you out before we allow you to do that. So it's, while people might say, this is a very lopsided or childish view to it, that anything that affects the economic whatever of the country is not just affecting the president's plans or the government's plans, but also the people of the country. I agree 100%. I do agree that Nigerians need to be, that the pains Nigerians are going through at this point is so much that we need to be eased off. But I do understand that even in communicating, there are ways to communicate the impact of some of these things than this kind of loose statements. I am reading it as it was said. Now, if you look at it, the people see states of emergencies exist in the Constitution, or the ability to declare a state of emergency exists in the constitutions for particular reasons, to protect not just about the economic security of the country or what the state contributes, but also about protecting the people. And they are clearly stated out conditions that must be met before you declare a state of emergency. We have right now, I'm scratching my head to see what those conditions are, what those things are, because we have seen killings in several states of the federations, which are far more than what happened in Rivers State. But the only difference is that Rivers State has oil wells and contribution to Nigeria's oil coffers. We've not seen this kind of response. And I do wonder what the threshold of bad behavior in those states or those particular places will be before the government will respond long term. So back to the comment of, we do not expect this kind of comment from a lawyer. He should also remember that after he finishes his tenure, he would also go back to civil society. But you know what? The truth is that he can only act by the standards he's held to. If the society does not hold him to higher standards or higher standards than expected from him, he would feel that, hey, this is just something I can do and get away with it. But hey, Nigeria is just part of the larger world. Other things happen in other parts of the world. Even the sinner crimes we point out these days do not give us much sanity as what is happening in Nigeria. So, I do hope we learn and I do hope we move forward. And I do hope that for the sake of the government of this country, actors within government resist the urge to make comments like this. Because yes, the opposition party is in their right to be able to say that, yes, it's a threat. And it's a threat because obviously what they would point at is that the first state that has been affected is one that is being governed by the opposition. And if it happens to any other opposition state, it will be seen as an attempt by the ruling party to basically declare one state country. Right. And we should run away from anything that would shake either the integrity of the systems or the structures that we are trying to build, and
Indeed.
also try to draw this nation into some level of disrepute at the end of the day.
Mm. All right, let me take your messages, and as we run out of the studio, well, not really run out of the studio, end of the show, that is. This is coming in from, who's talking to me here? This is Kelvin, if I'm correct. It says, as we speak, Enugu is being attacked daily by so-called herdsmen. Same with Ondo. You don't see this urgency to handle these situations by the CDS or the government. Should the people defend themselves suddenly, they would be interested. On the AGF's comments, he knows precisely what he said. We are under a dictatorship disguising as democracy. The handwriting on the wall is clear. The AGF speaks with the assurance of the stance of the president. This is coming from Idimapuza and Surulere. It says the Uromi type of killings will continue until open grazing is banned in Nigeria. It will also stop if our criminal justice system is improved and there would be consequences of crime committed. There will be no more jungle justice. May God help Nigeria. Amen to that. Amen to that. All right, we need to call it a morning. Thank you so much for keeping it tuned. And apologies once again for the technical issues that we had to deal with. We really hope that we could have avoided that, but we got there in the end. And thank you so much, Chibuzor, for joining me this morning, even though you're supposed to be resting on holiday. You're the real MVP.
Thank you so much, Ayo. Thank you so much, Lagos, for having me today.
All righty. I hope to see you again on the show soon. Lagos, it's been real. Just make sure you don't go anywhere, because at 8:15, we'll get into the world of entertainment, stories, everything in that space on the Grapevine. It is always a hoot and a half. Keep it tuned. Okay.